good evening, DirtFish Rally friends, and welcome
to church.
Welcome to our end of day one review here at the Ypres Rally. Listen, it's been quite an exciting day here. We waited a long time for our first day of World Rally Championship action on the stages around Ypres, and my goodness, it delivered, it really did. You know, there was plenty of drama out there today, particularly for the M Sport drivers, for Gus Greensmith, for Adrian Formeau. And then we saw some absolute brilliance out in the stages from the Hyundai drivers. And David, I think really we've got to start there, haven't we? The performance of the Hyundais today. When we think back to the last tarmac rally, which was Croatia, which was dominated by the Toyotas, goodness me, we kind of expected to see a strong Hyundai, but they were mega strong today.
But with the benefit of hindsight, should we not have expected it from Craig Breen? We should really have expected two strong cars from Hyundai, shouldn't we? And that's what we've got. But equally, I think
three strong cars.
I think we were all surprised when we saw Tanak go fastest on the first stage. And in fact, do you not owe Petter Solberg €320 now?
Listen, we saw Petter Solberg just before the start of the first stage. We talked about, I found a site that gives odds on rallies and on stages, and Petter looked at the page when I showed it to me, went, Tanak is the best value there, at nearly 3.5 to 1, and he genuinely said to me, put €100 for me.
And Colin being Colin said,
I'm not lending you
€100
because I knew that if he'd lost, I'd never have seen them again. I'd never have seen it again, would I? But, you know, that first stage from Tanak, and from the Hyundai team, from both Craig Breen and then from Thierry Neuville, it set really the tone for the rest of the day, David.
It did, and then we saw, Breen lead after that, the two stages. But then through the afternoon, from stage 4, 5, 6, 7, Thierry quickest on every stage, and he's just found that extra gear. It's as though he spent, the first, maybe the morning just sort of settling in, and then he's almost in that stage 7, he just kind of drove away. But interestingly, Cole, the gap in that 7th stage was so much closer to the Toyota, so clearly Toyota's found something through the afternoon that's brought them that bit closer. Ogier's clearly found some confidence. Kalle Rovanperä, I mean, we talked about how good was Rovanperä today, and it's easy to underestimate what he's done. But, maybe we'll come to that. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hyundai's great day. Awesome day.
Really great day. And I think, whereas certainly in recent rallies, we've seen when there has been a tyre choice to be made, invariably Hyundai have got it wrong, and Adamo's been quite prepared, David, to admit that. They got it absolutely right out there this morning. They'd have been in trouble if they got it wrong, because they have more experience here than any other team.
But I'm not sure with tyres, you could have taken a cross with a soft on the right front and a medium or a harder on the left front. Mix them whichever way you want. And this morning was the kind of morning that drivers would always come away and say, not quite right. He was probably right. He was wrong. I don't think there was an ideal tyre choice this morning. And, as long as you were in the ballpark, you would get one of the 4 stages bang on. Or not bang on, but as close as possible. That's what happened. The conditions haven't given us that opportunity to get it dramatically right or dramatically wrong, have they?
Exactly.
Which is kind of from our perspective, it's a little bit of a disappointment that we didn't get any rain or anything overnight. But so I think tyre-wise, everybody has been in the right area.
Yeah, they have. But we did hear the Toyota boys this morning, perhaps insinuating that the tyre choice wasn't absolutely ideal.
But I think this morning, Toyota we talked to Ogier and to Kalle. They both said they tested on the wrong road.
I saw some of the footage from the Ogier test, but when you said to him what was wrong with the road, he went, it was straight.
It was boring.
It was boring. How do you choose a test road for Ypres? What did you say your view on Ypres was?
If Toyota has got something wrong this year, it's been its selection of test roads. Arctic.
Yes.
Somewhere else.
Here.
and here. But for sure, you don't need to watch too many YouTube videos of Ypres to know it's lots of straights and 90s, isn't it? Lots of junctions. You don't go for a straight bit of road.
You absolutely don't.
And I think it took time. Also, what Ogier was surprised at this morning was what Freddie Loix had mentioned yesterday, the level of dust. And he was surprised at how much him and Elvin cleaned, particularly in the braking areas, like we'd said. it sits there, doesn't it? You know, we saw it on our recce yesterday. It really does.
And I think what you have to remember about these roads around Ypres is that they are farm roads, and we saw it yesterday. There is so much going on. So it's a combination of things. And I saw on social media one or two people saying, really? Can there be such a thing as cleaning on a tarmac road?
Oh, definitely.
Well, if you were out on the recce and you saw the amount that was being pulled out of these cuts, and then you saw the amount of traffic, of agricultural traffic, there was mud being pulled out, there was chaff. Is that the word, chaff?
But the trouble is, you know, it's big machinery, it's tractors, it's combines, and they're coming out. And because we've had this warm weather, you were saying this yesterday, you know, if you get that window as a farmer of 2 good days of dry weather, which we've had, because it's poured with rain all last week, you work through the night, work like hell to get the crops out of the field. That's what they're doing, and all the time. Again, you know, we argued yesterday about, is it wet, is it not in the field? There were the tractors were struggling to get out of the fields, they were so wet. So of course they've bought, and that mud has dried onto the road. First car through, it's certainly clear.
And it wasn't just, and Lois was right, it wasn't first car, it wasn't second car.
No.
It was probably third, fourth car that had the best of the conditions.
Yeah, clearly Thierry.
Clearly Thierry.
And his pace today is not all down at all to his place on the road. You know, what we've seen here today is a driver completely comfortable. And you know, the thing that really brought it home was when we were talking to Craig in the last media zone there, and we talked about stage 7, where Thierry really did find something and just moved it up another notch. And Breen said, you know, if he was going up the gap, up Mole's Gap, he'd be able to just find that bit extra. And you can. You know, as a local driver, you know, yep, this corner I can just lean a bit more. And that's where he's really kind of scored.
He really has.
Today.
He really
has.
has.
Also, one thing that I think we've underplayed with Craig is, he's had a lot of experience here, but he's had experience in an R5 car, and it's a very different car. And in some of these medium and high speed corners, you're almost better to have no preconceived knowledge or idea of what the aero will do, because Craig said today that he'd referred to his R5 notes. And with no aero, you know, you're probably going to be able to carry 10, 15 miles an hour more through each of those corners. So you're going to up-spec the corners in your notes.
Yeah, and you know, I haven't as yet, folks, given you a top 10. I will give you the top 10 very, very shortly. But the gap between Breen and the leader, Thierry Neuville, just over 7 seconds. The interesting fight that's an interesting enough fight, but it does get really interesting. We will look at Tanak in third, and then fourth, fifth, Ogier in sixth. Less than 10 seconds between those 4 cars. Tomorrow's going to be an absolutely fascinating day, David. But, you know, let's very quickly talk about the misfortunes for the M Sport team today. Adrien Fourmeau, very much a driver on the up, very much a driver building his confidence. He certainly doesn't lack confidence in that World Rally car. He had a big one, followed very, very quickly by poor old Gus Greensmith.
He did. And actually, what were we doing when we saw Fourmeau just before he went off? What was he doing as he drove past us? We were sat. We found a nice waffle shop. And we might have been enjoying quite a large Belgian waffle with ice cream with bananas.
And our cameraman, ice cream and bananas, and cream on top.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything. He never stopped eating all day, our cameraman. He's the skinniest little thing, he really is. But my goodness me.
A very hungry fella.
Yeah. But I'm going to have this pop orange beer brewed just around the corner from here. I don't drink beer.
He drinks this beer.
This one.
But Adrian drove past and was laughing his head off, wasn't he, at us tucking into our waffles. And then, unfortunately, very next stage went off, and it was a big old shunt, wasn't it?
And you said you saw him this evening, and he explained it was just really an error in the pace notes.
Yeah,
and
2 mistakes.
He was hobbling a little bit, so he's done a wee bit of damage to his leg.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said it was 28G, the maximum impact. But yeah, he'd got in his notes, he had...
Line, I think you said. It should have been dirty line.
It should have been, he had the word line in the notes, he should have had dirty, and he should have tapped the brake.
Yeah.
As he went through the corner, it dropped the right rear in the ditch, and
off he went.
Away he went.
And then Greensmith, a similar problem. It was the pace notes. It was a four left tightens, and it should have been tightens more, basically. To tighten more than he expected.
But again, you know, that is Ypres, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, people. We've talked a lot about the ditches. You know, the fact that you can cut these corners. But if you go off, you know, it's like Kielder. These roads are quite elevated. And what's in the ditches, Colin? What's in there?
Jeopardy!
What did he find there? He found the Jeopardy. He did.
Jeopardy. Now, talking about Jeopardy, very quickly, David, because we're very close to the end of our time here. Talk about the carnage in WRC2 on stage 7, it all got very, very complicated with
It
cars
did.
stopping and dropping and puncturing everywhere.
It did, yeah, and you know, a terrible stage for M Sport, wasn't it? With Christensen and Teemu Sunninen stopping in there, and Jari Huttinen puncture, and suddenly, you know, Oliver Solberg elevated to the lead in the Hyundai i20N Rally 2 car on its debut here, and a good performance from Oliver. You know, we can't take it.
Solid.
Okay, he's
Solid.
second. Johan Rossell is the quickest of the Rally 2 cars, but Oliver never competed or never really tested that car on tarmac.
He did a good job.
He did a
good
lot
job
on
today,
snow and gravel, yeah.
Folks, let's just very quickly go through our top 10 ahead of tomorrow's stages. So as you already know, Thierry Neuville leads the way. Craig Breen in second, 7.6 seconds off the lead. Tanak lies in third. He is 31.2 seconds behind our leader Neuville. It then gets interesting. In fourth, it's Kalle Rovanperä, just 1.4 behind Tanak. Fifth, it's Elvin Evans. Sixth, it's Sebastian Ogier, less than 10 seconds behind Tanak in third. Seventh, it's Takamoto Katsuta. Eighth, Pierre-Louis Loubet. He's having another very decent rally. In ninth, David mentioned him earlier on, it's Johan Rossell. And in 10th, leading WRC2, it is Oliver Solberg. Folks, thank you for joining us in our little church-like living room here at the DirtFish house. We'll see you all tomorrow.